So I'm going to start off this morning with a question for all of us. And I'm willing to wager that this is a question you did not expect to hear from me, but it's going to happen anyway. My question for you is, do you have an up-to-date will? Do you Who had that? Bingo card, anyone? Bingo? No? Okay. Do you have an up-to-date will? This not a will of iron. I know some of you do have that on lockdown. You're like, I got a will. Let me show you my will of iron. No, to be honest, me and Amy, we probably need to redo ours. It's been a minute. We probably should look at that again. My grandpa, when I was kind of so I was about in college in that era, a little bit after that. My grandpa started to prepare for the end of his life and get ready for that season, and he wanted to set up his family for success. And so he'd already lost his wife, and so he kind of had been through this before, and he's like, I'm going to do this right. I'm going to try to give this gift of a good, an up to date will for my family. And so he got that settled, but then after he got that settled, kept on thinking of more things. He's walking around the house, he's like, oh, I should do that. So he came up with a system that he thought was a great system for everybody. And his system was sticky notes. And so he'd be walking around and be like, oh, Andrew should have this. He'd write Andrew on it, just put the sticky note on the thing. And then he'd be walking around a bit later, like, there's sticky notes everywhere. There's just little notes to whoever, like, to whom it may concern, just these sticky notes. And, my grandpa was one of my heroes. And it's so funny to look back and think, well, he was trying to do what he thought was right, and yet, there is some gaps in his attempt. This is a responsible thing to do. It's very responsible to have an up-to-date will, right? That's where we're headed today and throughout the series is responsibility, which I know is super exciting. It's exactly what you wanted to talk about this morning. You're like, that is exactly it. Responsibility for sure is what I need to talk about today. But I'm not just going to list a bunch of things of like, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that, and this is the responsible thing right here. This is what you got to do. We're going to talk about some other stuff. Is that working? There we go. We're going to talk about some other stuff. We're going to talk about Floral LCV. I'm not sure that was in my notes on purpose. There we go. I probably put that on there on accident. Oops. But I'm so off track now. Okay, the responsibles. Here we go. There's a cape involved. I love the cape. I wish I had a cape. I would dress up like that for Halloween. The responsibles. This is a unique group of people, the responsibles. And you may be part of it, you may not be part of it, but these are the heroes in our world and in our life. The men, the women, the students, the children even, that take responsibility for their lives, their past, their present, their future, what's going to happen next, their internal part of their life that nobody else knows about. They're responsible with that. The external part that everybody's aware of, they take responsibility. It's not just excuses. It's no blaming. It is ownership. Now, you may be a responsible person. You might be one that's like, I got this on lockdown. And you know this. In fact, I'm going to put this up on screen. It's going to make you cringe. Your irresponsibility eventually becomes someone else's responsibility. You're like, that's the best thing I've heard all day. I need to send that. I'll leave it up there for a while. You can take a picture and send it to somebody if you need to. You're like, I've got a list of people that need to hear that because I've been carrying their burdens. They need to just remove that part. They need to get this part figured out in their life, right? A responsible human being reads that and you just cringe. You can't handle it. It's embarrassing to think that you would live life in such a way that maybe somebody is left to clean up after you. Like I can't handle that. The idea that someone would come along and carry my burden, that's my burden, that's my mess, it's up to me. People that are responsible, that wear the cape figuratively, they are so responsible, it's part of their identity. It's not just something they do, it's who they are, right? They're the best neighbors on your street. Like they are very aware of everything going on and they're responsible for it. They're the best coworkers that you have. You love working with the responsible. You're like, I don't have to worry about them at all. Like, in fact, not only are they going to get their work done on time and it's going to be part of the team and everything, they're going to do everything that they committed to, and they're probably going to ask if they can help me do my stuff too. It's the best. These are the best friends that you will ever have because you don't have to be frustrated and angry. There's no wedges that get worked in there because you're like, we were going to go on the thing, and then you totally blanked on me, and you left me hanging, and you're still my friend, but now our friendship has this, like, thing attached. You're like, I don't want to say it, but I feel it, right? These are the best people. We want them everywhere. We want our kids to marry these people. Everybody is invited. Everybody's invited. This is not something that's just unique to one person or a certain group of people. Everybody's invited to become a responsible. And it comes down to this question. Am I taking responsibility for my life? How about everybody say that with me? Am I taking responsibility for my life? And some of you, you're like, I need to pause and think about that for a second. Am I taking responsibility for my actions, for my reactions, for my overreactions? Am I taking responsibility for the obligations that I have in my life? Am I taking responsibility for my future? Because I can't just live in this moment and be irresponsible with my future. Because that's going to be a burden that someone has to carry, and it might be me and it might be somebody else. But if I'm going to be a responsible, I've got to do something ahead of time for that season. And some of you in here this morning, you're like, of course I am. I love this idea. But also in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I can kind of check out. I might not need to come back for the rest of the series because check in the box, done. Let me be clear, though. The question is not, are you a responsible person? Right? You probably are. But the focus isn't on just a will, having a will filled out. That's good. That's a responsibility. That's a good thing. It's not just like, am I paying my bills? Yeah, I'm a responsible person. I pay my bills. I pay my taxes. I show up on time to the best of my ability. Like that's being responsible. That's a different question, though. It's not the same. That's a given, right? Because there's consequences if you're not. Things suffer if you're not. You follow through on what's expected of you. That rhymes. You follow through on what's expected of you, right? You know this. Because if you don't, there's a price to pay. The relationship suffers. You may lose your job if you're not responsible at your work. These things happen. We're wrestling with a different question today, though. The question that we are wrestling with is that first initial question. And that is, this is not working, Paige. I'm going to need you to help me out this morning. You know what's funny is she actually this morning, she's like, is that working just fine? Does that need new batteries? I was like, yeah, it's working great. Nope. So in my pocket it goes. No, the question is, am I taking responsibility for my life? Not am I a responsible person? Am I taking responsibility for my life? Am I owning my life, my aspects of my life that some people don't see? Those hidden parts. Am I taking responsibility for the left unattended aspects where it's just like it just kind of hangs there until I deal with it of my past? I try to move on from my past rather than deal with what I've done in the past. Is it preparing to the assumption that I'm going to have to be responsible for what's coming down the road? Taking ownership for all aspects of your life. This is challenging. And it's challenging for everyone. Part of the reason it's challenging is because it's going to make us feel something. It's going to make us feel bad about ourselves. Because there's some aspect of your life, I promise you, there's some aspect of your life, regardless of how responsible you've been and you are, there's going to be a part that you haven't taken full ownership of. And if you look at that in the mirror, it's going to hurt your feelings. You're going to feel bad. And we've been taught the worst thing in life is to feel bad about ourselves. So we just avoid all those things. We say, no, that's not healthy for me to think badly about myself, so I'm not going to deal with that. But let me tell you, there are things that are far worse than actually feeling bad about yourself. Refusing to acknowledge and address something bad about ourselves. That's worse. When you just ignore it, you put the blinders on. I'm not going to pay attention to that. I know I hurt them, but I'm not going to deal with it. I know I did that in my past, but I'm not going to. I know I have this financial thing, but I just move past it. I'm just going to see if it, what happens on its own. If you're not taking ownership, even though it makes you feel bad to be like, oh, I have that debt or that relational debt or I have that thing hanging in the back, it's easier for me to just move on from life. It feels bad to look at it in the mirror, doesn't it? You feel worse about yourself. But that is when you can start to make some changes. Right? We don't have to make something up to feel bad about ourselves. We have plenty of evidence of that. We just have to look at it. We just have to look under the carpet that we've been sweeping things under. Like, oh, it's still under there. It didn't disappear on its own for some reason. So, our question, am I taking responsibility for my life? We're going to repeat this regularly. This requires a good, hard look in the mirror. Look at yourself without the filter on of, I've done a pretty good job of everything. I've got everything pretty well squared away. Now take all those filters off. Let's look at the reality. What is your past? Have you dealt with it fully? The person that's easiest to deceive is the one that looks back at you in the mirror. It requires bold honesty. And if we don't address some of this stuff, especially as a Christian, if we don't address this, it makes us something. It makes us a hypocrite, right? And this is, just so you're clear, this is not the oath that doctors take. This is something else. This is someone who pretends to do, but doesn't do what they expect others around them to do. Now, I know there's a lot of doing and to doing in that, so let me read it again. Someone who pretends to do, but doesn't do what they expect others around them to do. Let's be honest. We expect everybody else around us in our life to be responsible. We expect our coworkers, our family members to take responsibility for their lives. You set a lunch meeting, you go to the meeting, you expect the other person to what? Show up on time. And if they don't, you expect them to let you know ahead of time, 5 minutes out. Hey, running a little bit late. Gonna be a few minutes. I'll be there though. Or maybe, hey, half an hour ahead of time. Looks like my schedule is shifted. I can't make it today. Let's reschedule. That feels better. We expect that from someone. And then you're at the lunch meeting. And you're in a restaurant with other people. You're in the public. And some of the other people have children. And they sit next to you. And they throw their fork over the edge of the cushion behind you. And you're like, quit it. The first time it's like, oh, it's so cute. Look at that guy. And then he does it again. You're like, okay, that one hit pretty close. That's starting to dig in the shoulder. The 17th time, you're like, okay, let me show you what responsible parenting is. Let me give you the example. You just sit over there and watch. I will show you how to deal with your child. You shouldn't do that because you'll get arrested. But we feel it, don't we? Because we expect everybody around us to be responsible as well. We expect people to pay their taxes. It's just yeah, of course. If that's what you do. We expect them to pay their bills. We expect them, if they're part of something like church, we expect them to give back to their church, be invested, be, part of the crew. That's just what we expect. Yeah, of course, that's what we do. We expect these things. We expect that when someone, first of all, they take the trash out to the street in time for their garbage, and then we expect them to bring the garbage bins back in a, logical length of time, not 5 days. We're not just leaving it out on the street until next week. We got to bring it back in. Don't get me started on driving. Turn signals, anyone? This is not optional. Sometimes I think people drive around, they're like, that's a choice, player's choice. I'm going to choose not to. I'm like, well, you almost got me into an accident, so you need to. I yell at him. My son's like, well, you signaled at them. I'm like, no, I didn't. He's like, yeah, with your finger. No, it's not true. It's not true. That's not real. That's not real. You may be wondering at this point, you're like, okay, why are we talking about this at church? What's the big deal? I mean, I guess that's important, like life information, but why is this church information? Why is this Jesus information? Because God wants you. Part of his will for you is for you to be responsible with your life. And it's your mama's will too. So, I mean, it's like God and Jesus. They both want you to be responsible. Following Jesus looks like something. It's not like I follow Jesus my own way and it looks my own thing. Like it looks completely different over here. No, following Jesus, it might look a little bit different person to person, but there's a common theme, there's a common thread, there's a common direction that we all move. When you're following Jesus, you are a responsible person. And not just with things, you take responsibility for your life. Following your king will lead you. Remember, Caleb just said earlier about following. When you follow someone, when you follow your king, he will lead you to becoming more responsible and taking more responsibility for your life. So there's two reasons for this. One, it's good for you. You are better. It might be harder. You might have to be more disciplined. You might have to have some hard conversations. You might have to adjust a few things that you need adjusted anyway. But you might have to do some work. But at the end of the day, it's good for you. Your life will be better for it. But not only that, this is the bonus. It's good for people around you. Yes, it's good for you. But your people, your family, your friends, the people around you, your neighbors, your coworkers are going to be so grateful when you move in the direction of taking responsibility for your life. It gives them just a glimpse of what following Jesus looks like. I mean, imagine someone that starts to follow Jesus, starts to take responsibility for their life, and without saying anything, people in their world take note. They're like, wow, that's different. There is a tangible difference in your life. Because Jesus should make a tangible difference in your life. It's not about a prayer that you say one time and you go back to the exact same thing. This is a directional shift in your life. I'm going to live in this direction from now on. I'm going to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. This is the way we love and honor, right? We love and honor others when we take responsibility for our lives. And when we don't, the inverse of this, when we don't, we place unnecessary burdens on others. I mean, think about that. Super, uber responsible people, we think about that all the time. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't realize that there is an effect on my decision that somebody else has to bear. There's a burden that somebody else has to bear because of this. I firmly believe, this might sound silly, but I firmly believe that Jesus wants us to be the most responsible people in the world. That we take responsibility the most, more than anyone else. We were created in God's image. But this is part of it. We are created for and with responsibility. This is directional. This is part of what it looks like. Responsibility isn't something that you have, it's who you are. And when you dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge again, those pieces in life that you're like, oh, you're just coming at me real quick. You're like, I'm going to avoid. You're just trying to play dodgeball with life. You lose a piece of you in those moments, right? You lose a part of you behind. You leave it there. Every parent knows this, that when their child refuses responsibility, like there's red flags that go up. Like we start to go on like, oh no, we start to get into like the danger zone of, have I done something wrong as a parent? Am I leading them in the wrong direction? When we see them not take responsibility, we feel something. We sometimes say something in a loud voice like this. Wait, you can't just move on. Come back and clean this up. And that's something that you say from like the time they can start walking till the time they're not there in your house anymore, until they have kids of their own. It's like, wait. I see this part of your life and you're not taking ownership of it. You're missing the responsibility part. Come back and do it. Come back. You made this mess. Clean it up. And it's a lot easier as a child because it's like, Cheerios. Okay, come pick up the Cheerios. Eventually, it transitions into relationships. It transitions into things that have big, huge ramifications for the rest of their life. And when you don't take responsibility, and when you see others not take responsibility for their life, it minimizes their potential. And we know this. We've seen it. It starts to affect the direction that they can, the potential of how high they can actually reach, what they could actually accomplish in this life. It starts to minimize some of that. You start to believe the lies and the excuses if it's you. You're like, I guess I'm just going to go along with it. I guess this is just who I am. Not being honest with them or yourself in those moments has huge ramifications. It forces you to hide behind your excuses, and you become a smaller and smaller version of yourself, less and less effective. But if someone steps up and owns their stuff, do they get bigger or smaller in your estimation when you watch someone do this? They get bigger. You're like, yeah, that's a pretty big mess you made, but you see it. You know it. You can start to trust that person a little bit more. Even though they made a mess, it's like, yeah, but they acknowledge that they made a mess and they're starting to do something about the mess. We don't expect people to be perfect in life. We know that people are not perfect. But we should clean up after ourselves. However big or small that might be. If you don't, we start taking everything that you say, we start taking with a grain of salt. It's like, maybe. I've seen it though. I've seen the end result of you not taking responsibility. And I know that that has something to do with my relationship with you. So we start to trust them a little bit less, a little bit less. They start to shrink and shrink and shrink and become smaller and smaller. Taking responsibility for our actions, for our reactions, and lack of action keeps us whole. We stop leaving parts of ourselves behind. It keeps us healthy. It keeps us complete. It keeps us full size, not miniature sized. When we decide that we're going to carry our own burdens, carry our own weight. And let me tell you, if you're in the room and you're a single person right now, if you start to take responsibility now, it ensures that you can bring all of you into the future relationships that you will have in the future. It's not just parts of it, it's the whole part of it. As a Jesus follower, this is incredibly important. Right? Our irresponsibility robs others. It steals from them because you're giving them a burden that they have to pay. So you're taking something from them. Eventually, your irresponsibility becomes someone else's responsibility. They pick up what you've dropped, what you've missed, because they're responsible. It creates conflict in relationships. Some of you know this all too well. You can't, and we know this, we talk about this a lot at church, but you can't be right with God while you have conflict, while you have, you're missing your relationships with others. You can't just focus on the vertical relationship. Be like, yeah, all of this is a mess over here, and everyone that I work with hates me, and my family, and all this, and this relation. You can't be wrong with everybody else, and God's like, yeah, we'll just ignore all that. We're good. Right? Because as a Jesus follower, you realize that other people are also God's sons and daughters. And just like your child and just like my child, if you do something that hurts them, I'm not okay with you. We have a problem. Same thing. Taking responsibility for me is how I love people around me. That's part of it. And when we don't, we're lacking that aspect. With all that in mind, we're going to take a look at a document that the Apostle Paul wrote around 2,000 years ago. He puts words to this idea in the statement that we're going to take a look at this morning. And honestly, and you might not believe this fully, but I'm going to tell you this is the truth. If you start to implement this in your life, if you actually evaluate and decide, I think I'm going to move in that direction, it has the capacity, has the capability, has the potential to change your entire world if you just simply take this to heart. So, Romans chapter 13, verse 7. Give to everyone what you owe them. Give to everyone what you owe them. Do you owe them an apology? Like you have people they have a relationship with, and you haven't given them the apology they're waiting on, and now it's just awkward because every time you show up, they're like, "Is he going to say it this time? Nope. Again? No. Okay." And you've lessened, you have affected the relationship because that apology is missing. Is there a debt that you owe? And if you don't pay it, that affects the relationship. Do you owe someone appreciation? Like they've done some things for you and you haven't appreciated them fully. Is that something that's missed in your relationship? Maybe it's time. Is it time? Paul continues to list a few things. He says, give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. Shoot. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. He's not giving us wiggle room here. He's kind of like, hey, just heads up. Take responsibility for your life. There's not an aspect of your life that you can just skate on. You have to take ownership of every aspect. There's no excuses, especially if you're a Jesus follower. He's told us. He's taught us. He leads us to take responsibility for our lives. Own your own role in your relationships. You know, if you have a deadline that you promised that you'd make and you're going to miss it, speak up. Don't let it pass and hope no one notices. Tell them, hey, I'm not going to make that. I know I promised that. I'm not going to make it. Give me another 3 days and I'll have it done. And then do it. Make sure you do it, right? That's the other part of this. We can say the words, but we have to do it with the action in order to take responsibility. If you're married, just a heads up, you owe. There's things in you owe. Amy, you can put your earmuffs on just for a little bit. I owe my wife. I know that. There's things I should be doing more. I have to take responsibility for all aspects. Things that I've committed to, things that I've said, yeah, I'm going to do this. Or maybe it's the other things that I haven't said, but if I'm going to value the relationship, I need to do. Like taking ownership and responsibility for my physical health. There's a pastor buddy of mine, and just recently we were on this call together, and he's a very large man, and he's been very large the entire time I've known him. And he says, I did something that I haven't done in 13 years. He said, I went to the gym the other day. And he said, because my sole focus in my life for the last 20 years has been ministry, it's been church, it's been work. But I realize on the other side of that season, I have not been taking responsibility for that relationship that I'm going to have with my wife. Hopefully I'm still around. If I don't take care of it now, I won't be then. So I was able to encourage him, and the whole group was like celebrating him because at this point, finally, he's taking responsibility for this aspect of his life. Maybe it's not physical health for you. Maybe it's financial health. You're like, oof, let's not talk about that. That's a mess. There's a lot of red marks when it comes to my financial aspect. If you're not taking responsibility now, it's only going to get worse later. Are you taking responsibility? Maybe it's fidelity of mind as well as physical. Like there's aspects of your life that you have to make sure that you are taking ownership and responsibility for those parts. Maybe you said you'd empty the dishwasher and you keep forgetting all the time. We even for a little while had like a little magnet on there, and I still would miss it. And it's like, well, this is a commitment I made. And you're like, it's silly. That's silly. That's an empty dishwasher. Just empty it. Just do it. I forget it all the time. But it ends up working into the relationship, doesn't it? As silly as that sounds. Because it's a way that I can value my wife. And when I don't, it feels like I'm devaluing. Paul continues on. He says, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. He's like, there's one debt that's okay. You just keep on pouring into the love part, the love cup, the love tank. You just keep on doing that. That's one that you can never have enough. There's never like, check it off the box. Okay, the love part is complete. That's all it. No, you keep on pouring into that one. That's the only one, though. That's the only exception. And if you've created a gap in the relationship, like You committed to do one thing and then you didn't do it. So gap from commitment and expectation versus reality. If there's a gap in between those two things, don't fill that up with lies and excuses. Don't fill that gap up with like just ignorance and be like, hopefully she doesn't find out. Be honest about it. Whether it's your marriage relationship, whether it's your work relationship, bring it up. Say, hey, here's the gap I created. I committed to do this. I didn't, or I didn't do it in time, or it looks different than we expected. This is where we ended up. I'm going to do this better. I apologize. Right? Own the gap. Start to fill it. And eventually that trust will build back up again. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. And coming from Paul, that's a pretty big statement. Paul declared himself the Pharisee of Pharisees, the greatest one to ever live. And then he had this moment where he left everything that he knew to follow the one that he was trying to end because he met Jesus in this moment. Changed everything. I say this all the time. It's especially appropriate today for football season start. He changed jerseys at halftime. He's playing against a team. He's like, I am opposed to the Christians. Halftime happens. He's like, ooh. Takes off the Pharisee jersey, puts on the Christian jersey, puts on the Jesus jersey, plays the rest of his life for that team. It's different, right? This is what he does. So him, because he was a Pharisee, the law was preeminent. The law was the most important thing. It was above everything else. What he's saying is if you love others the way that Jesus loved you, that was the single command that Jesus gave us. If you just love others the way that I've loved you, that you will fulfill the other commands. You will do this. Paul's reiterating this. Excuse me. This means that we should not be handing off our stuff to other people. Right? We should be taking responsibility for our own irresponsibilities. We should own that part of our lives and try to do something about it. Responsibles own it, right? They're created for it. We recognize this. We are created in the image of God. It is part of who we are. And if we're not functioning with responsibility, then we're missing it. Throughout this series, we're going to continue to repeat and wrestle with this all the time. Has your responsibility become someone else's responsibility? Have you handed it off? Have you just said, yeah, I'm good here, and then someone else has to put that weighted backpack on? Somebody else wearing your burden right now? Have you left them shouldering that, what you should be carrying? We can't magic eraser life. Like we can't just whitewash our past. We can't clean it however bad we want to. But you can do something to clean up on aisle U, right? You look back, you have to recognize, oh, I knocked everything over back there. I've got to do something about it. I was a bull in a china closet with my relationships back there, and I never addressed it. You got to do something about it. That's what following Jesus looks like. That's what love requires of us. We ask this all the time. What does love require of me? It requires you to go back and clean the mess that you made. Don't let somebody else clean up your mess. You do it. Here's a big question. Are you currently engaged in something that will likely create a future mess for someone else? Yikes. Are you doing something right now that is going to have an adverse effect on the relationship down the road? They just don't know about it yet. Are you doing something right now that you know there's going to be a consequence in the end? Are you dabbling with something that you know could have dire consequences? Are you doing something that might have an ill effect on the relationship that you say you value and you care about? So the question I have for you today is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do to take responsibility in your own life? Are you going to actually follow Jesus and do the hard thing and pick up the phone and be like, I've got to tell you something. I'm sorry. I did that 16 years ago, whatever it was. I've never apologized for that thing. Or I know that you've been carrying the burden for me in this aspect. And to be honest, I've just allowed it to continue because it's easier than addressing it. But that's not your responsibility. That's mine. And I need to own that. Maybe it's within the marriage. Maybe it's within your family. Maybe it's within, your work. Are you willing to follow Jesus even in those aspects? You're like, well, I'll follow Jesus at church. I don't know about the outside the doors. Are you willing to follow him everywhere? And just heads up, he takes you to some pretty scary places. Places that you hoped you'd never have to return. People that you hoped that you never had to talk to again. Yet you've left something, you've left a part of you there, and you need to address it. You know it. When you do that, you start to participate in the kingdom of God here and now. You start to represent Jesus differently. As we wrap up this morning, I do have a couple of discussion questions because I want to continue this conversation as we progress through the series. So, first one, has someone's responsibility ever become your responsibility? What is your relationship with them like now? And some of you are like, well, it's fine, it's still there because I bore them. But some of you know you're carrying a burden that's not yours. And you're willing to do that because you love them. But it has done something in the relationship. Similarly, has your past irresponsibility ever become someone else's responsibility? Have you done something? Have you said something? Have you made a mess and you never cleaned it up? Lastly, same question I had before. Are you currently engaged in something or neglecting something that will likely become a mess for someone else to clean up? What are you going to do about that? Let me pray, and we'll get you out of here to go clean up some messes. Dear Heavenly Father, you are good, and you love us, and you care about us, and you want the best for us. And part of that, as our Heavenly Father, us, your children, part of that you desire, it is your will for us to take ownership and take responsibility for our lives. Even when that makes us feel bad about ourselves. That's the expectation and that's the hope. That we would move to take ownership to that level, to that degree. And part of it is because we want to follow you there. We've seen you go that route, that you are responsible, that you've led us there. If we're going to do that, we have to own every aspect of our lives. And part of it also, we know that every time that we leave an irresponsibility behind, we're leaving part of us behind, and we're shrinking ourselves. How other people see us, how we see us. And God, we don't want to be small people. We don't want to be people that others don't trust. We want to be trustworthy. And that means we might have to have some hard conversations. And in those moments, God, I pray that you would give us the courage and the boldness to do exactly what you've asked us to do. And to walk that out and make amends. God, we love you, and we thank you that you loved us so much that you hope that we do the hard things in life that have big, huge ramifications. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.